Welcome to a tutorial looking at the Australian Curriculum Assessment Generator Automation on the Teacher Assistant AI. This is version 1 of the tool, and as you will see that there is a link that you will get to any suggestions in how this tool can be improved into your context, but also overall in general. Let's dive straight in, and I'll give you a description of how the tool will work and what the influence in the contextual information that you can give to get the best output as well. So we are looking at to create the objective actually is to create the assessment and a marking guide for whatever we will be assessing students' proficiencies in. We are also using the Australian curriculum in this example, and we are going to add the Year 8 science curriculum. You're able to add the different subject in again, and this might be double handling for some, but for some teachers, you might be studying sports science or biological sciences or other types of abstract parts of the science curriculum under different subject names, and that just allows you to change that around. The first main influencing piece of context that we need for this automation to be successful is what are you actually assessing the student proficiencies in? What do they need to demonstrate their competencies in? This isn't how they're going to do it, but what are you trying to get accessible elements out of the students on what would you like them to demonstrate? I said that quite clear, many different ways. We are in this example, sorry about the spelling here, there's a few mistakes there. Students to classify and identify the characteristics of these three different types of rocks. So the clear language I've used here is I need students to be able to classify them and I need to be able to identify them based on their characteristics. This is a simple task, and the time allowance here is I'm going to add in 1 hour for them. You're able to have more of a formative approach with no fixed time, or if this is a small, like an exit ticket task, something that's under 30 minutes, these are in reference to time on task, not how long your lesson is, but how long are you allowing students to be able to work on this assessment task. This will support the automation and the AI in the way that it will approach the depth in which they will guide the assessment for students in what the complexities are. This is your last piece of major context that you can add, and it might be small in text here, but it has a major impact on what the result will be for me. The assessment mode is fluid, and because we're only using text, we are able to use that text as an instructional language to be able to, I want my assessment to be able to get the students to demonstrate their proficiencies in this mode. Are you having them create a STEM activity or engage in a oral presentation and oral response, a written essay response, and add in your constraints if there are any. We are doing an oral presentation that each student will need to go for 60 seconds, a written test with a maximum of 400 words and the minimum of 200 words. Adding in those constraints will also support it in creating conditions for the assessment. The last part here is where we get a differentiated assessment options. This will not change the assessment task. We will still create the AI will still create the original assessment, but what this will do is create accessible points for you as a teacher in how to make modifications to allow the assessment to be accessible to the student conditions that you outline. So one student needs to do an oral examination due to a broken hand, a very simple and common differentiated reason, but we'll also look at students with additional needs as well. You'll put those in here, and that might give better influence on how the AI can support you in making modifications. You'll get your download link here, and I'll bring that up to screen. Now that we're here, this is my download link. There's a few things that I would change as a teacher, just so on what I would have student facing, but we will give you as much supportive information as we can to be able to get you off on the right step. First of all, we're looking at the two main points here for students. They are going to get their first pieces of information about what is my actual task that you are asking me to do. The second period here is how am I going to do it and what do you need me to do? So, what is my task and what do you need me to do? Here are my conditions on what my constraints are to complete the assessment and my checkpoints that you will support me through my assessment task as well. For myself as a teacher, I would probably delete this out of the student version. This is the authentication strategies on where I'm able to create an environment where I'm going to go check in on the students and get an explanation of their thought processes as well. That's some support to me, but I will take those out. For students, you'll get a glossary. This will come back to the what's my task and what do I need to do. It'll take some of the keywords out of there and create a couple of glossary words to support with the comprehension of the task elements. You'll also get your achievement standard aspects or the outcomes of what's going to be assessed in this or considered in this assessment. This assessment is assessing these different elements, but really we are looking at what is the actual assessable outcome. What is the assessable element? First of all, we're looking at rock analysis and classification. The linked outcome from the achievement standard is the describe the key processes of the rock cycle because we have one main aspect of the achievement standard that is linked to this assessment that I had outlined. That is why we have, and the assessment is actually quite a simple task. It's not quite a complex task. That's why we only have one row of criterion. The more complex, obviously, and the more accessible elements, the more accessible. Sorry, the more accessible linked outcomes from the achievement standard, the more accessible elements will be added in. What you'll get is a student version and a teacher version. This one is using more clear verbatim language from the achievement standard to create the marking guide. And in your secondary version is a student version, or I would still use this in students to be able to support them in what they need to actually do in terms on how they are going to be assessed and graded. That is the same rubric format, but also the language is a mirror image, but just being modified for student accessibility. The last portion here is where we talked about the differentiation, and we're looking at trying to provide students accessibility in consideration of those points that you put in. And these are some methods and modes that you could do that to be able to allow students to access the same assessment task. Modifications would need to be made. Do not take assessment tasks as they face value. Please do go through each assessment task before you deliver or consider to deliver with your students. I hope this tutorial has been informative and helpful in your journey. Thank you.